What is up, guys, and welcome back to Shred City. Today we are going to be looking at weather conditions in MXGP 3. So this is a new thing they've brought to the series. It is really cool, adds another dimension to the whole game. And yeah, let's just look at some of the things I do to help increase my speed, stay on the track, prevent falling off, and generally get better lap times just on wet tracks. So let's have a look. Let's jump straight into step one. So my first step, or sort of bit of advice I would say, is just make sure your bike is fully upgraded to the maximum it can be. And I always say this at the start of most how-to and tutorial style videos, just because you may as well. If you can kind of get the most out of your bike, it would be just a waste not to. So just go back, make sure you're running all the top gear, best suspension, tyres, all that sort of thing, and then once you've done that, we can move on to step 2. Okay, so my second sort of bit of advice is to stay in a higher gear in the wet tracks. Now, this is because you're basically losing a lot of traction when you're in lower gears. So say you go around a corner in second, and on a normal kind of dry track you go around in second, and then on a wet track you want to be going around in third. And now this is going to basically prevent the back wheel from just spinning up and the bike over revving. I mean, you can test out for yourself. If you go around a corner, most corners in MXGP 3 on in like a wet condition, the back wheel is just going to be spinning up like crazy and it's not going to be going anywhere. Whereas if you go around in a slightly higher gear, you'll find that although it might not be as aggressive, you'll actually get the traction that you want, and then it will start to sort of actually pick up momentum. So that's the idea. Sometimes, you know, you forget and you just end up knocking it down to second gear and you're like, oh crap, and you have to knock it up again. And it's just one of those things that you'll learn to do once you hit the wet tracks, is just always try and stay up in fourth, third and fifth. I mean, they're kind of the main gears. Third, fourth and fifth, I would try and stay in those gears on a wet track. Try and stay away from second, even though, I mean, you can see me go down in second on some of the corners, and to be honest, some of the corners do need it. I'm not saying every corner needs third, but some corners need second. Really try and avoid first. I truly believe first gear is pretty much useless on a wet track, unless you've obviously fallen off and you need to start up again. But yeah, you just got to kind of learn to stay in those higher gears and keep the momentum up, and you'll find that your lap times just get better. So let's move on to step 3. So my third step, or bit of advice, is about body positioning. And obviously on all tracks you should be moving the rider forwards and backwards on the bike, but on the wet tracks I find is keep the body weight towards the back end of the bike and on the back wheel, especially on the straightaways. You might not be able to do it on the sort of turns and corners, that's fine, but when you're going along the straights or going up a jump, just keep it on that back wheel, and you'll just find that it picks up the traction a lot easier because it's sort of weighted and digs into the dirt. Whereas if you're at the front of the bike, it's only going to be, you know, it's just going to be skimming along the top, and you're going to find you're going to like over rev a whole lot. And yeah, so try and keep to the back wheel. Obviously when you go around turns, you might need to go to the front to get a tighter turn, or you might just, you know, turn to the left, turn to the right, that's fine. Just be careful you don't overturn, especially on these wet tracks. It's so easy to slip out, and I think I'll move on to this in a minute. But yeah, that's sort of my third tip on body positioning. So my fourth piece of advice relates quite a lot to step 3, and that is you don't want to, when you're cornering in the wet, you don't want to overdo it. And you've probably seen me slip out a few times, and that is just because of the wet track. It is so slippy when you're cornering on this game, and don't sort of like lean the sticks completely over left and right, because you'll just find it will just slip out every time. If it was on a dry track, yeah, you might be able to get away with it, but on a wet track you need to kind of have that throttle control, lean it a bit and then put it back upright, lean it a bit, but you can't just full on slam the bike over, otherwise you'll just fall off. So yeah, just be a little bit careful with that. I've done a full video just on cornering, and that explains about throttle control and all the rest of it, so have a look at that if you're interested. But yeah, just take it quite easy and don't lean over too much. Okay, so my fifth and final step would be suspension, and I've done a full video on this, so if you want to check that out, I will link it in the description. But you basically just want to set up a brand new setup for your suspension on a new slot, so you can have a dry weather and wet weather setup. You could even go as far as to have a sand setup and a hard pack and intermediate dirt setup. I mean, you can really have loads of different suspension setups on this game, which is really cool to see. So make sure you utilize all of those. But yeah, you just want to kind of trial it, go onto the compound on a wet day and see how it kind of performs and what differences each slider makes. And once you've done that, then you can go onto online and start getting better lap times with sort of wet weather. So yeah, that kind of wraps it up, to be honest. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll just run through what we've said, the key points of today's video. So my first point was you want to make sure the bike's fully modified, you know, make sure the top exhaust, wheels, all that kind of thing. Second point, stay in higher gear. If you're going around a corner in second, try going around it in third. You might find that you get more traction. Third tip was use the rider body weight. Now lean back in the corner, not in the corners, on the straightaways, and in the whoops as well. You want to be leaning back, and then in the corners you want to be turning. That leads us on to the fourth point, which is don't overdo the leaning and cornering on this game, because you can slip out really easily. So yeah, don't sort of overdo that. And then the fifth point is suspension. Make sure your suspension is set up for a wet weather track. You don't really want to be running a dry weather setup on a wet weather track. So yeah, that will help you out. And yeah, that kind of rounds it off for today's video. So I hope you enjoyed. Please comment on what you want to see, if this helped you. I'm really enjoying making these videos at the minute, especially on the new MXGP 3 game. And thanks for the support on the videos. I've got about 20 subs now, and it's just going really well. So thank you so much, and I will continue to make videos for you guys. But that's it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.